take off my mask to see, for some folks to see my face. You know, in my country, I'm from Nigeria. We have what we call masquerade. I don't know if you have that in Kenya. You don't know who is behind the mask, you know. So, but it's good for us to do that. And then I've known Bishop Jenga. So I've known a lot of folks in the Kenyan community, a lot. And I have to say this. Before now, I used to have Ethiopians. Yes. Is this? Okay. Ethiopians as the whole bulk of my client. But in other words, Africans are my whole bulk of clients, generally. I have white clients as well, but they're in the areas of litigation, you know. They like to sue, to sue people. So that aspect, I do have them, so. But I have clients from Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Somalia, most of our African countries. So mostly I call them brothers and sisters because I myself is an immigrant. I was once an immigrant, just like every one of us here. And then when we come to America, we try to regularize our status, to see if we can adjust our status. That's very important. And as soon as you're able to get that done, then you are integrated into the system. Okay, without change of status in America, you cannot have Social Security. When we came to US in the 90s, in the late 90s, it's not as tough as it is now. You come with your B1 or B2 visa, or even F1 visa, whatever visa you are issued by the embassy in your country. You come into US, you go to the Social Security Administration with your passport, fill the form, and they issue you Social Security. You wait for 2 weeks, you get it in the mail, and then that's your GPS. I call it GPS in America. You can hide anywhere in this country with your Social Security. They're gonna track you down. If you owe child support and move into the rural areas in the US, and provided you're working somewhere there, they're gonna track you there. And they make sure that Uncle Sam gets their money, okay? So anyway, sometimes when I speak to African community, I usually like to take questions, all right? Because immigration is very broad. And I know that what affects people mostly, most people that come from Africa, is either they are here, they will file asylum, okay? Or they get married to a US citizen. So, but there are two ways you can adjust your status at that basic level. You can file asylum. If you are successful with your asylum, then you can adjust your status. If the asylum is approved, then we call it affirmative asylum. There is affirmative asylum, there is a defensive asylum. Affirmative asylum is you came in with your valid visa, okay? And you talk to people and they say, oh, depending on the country's condition, or in your country, then you can come up with your asylum. So if you have been persecuted in your country, if of course, Africa is almost the same. We don't have a system that is like what we have in the United States, okay? So you can have the government security apparatus or agents doing all kinds of things to people. So you can come here and seek asylum if we're able to leave your country. And then when you decide to file asylum, you are basically a refugee. A refugee is somebody who is unwilling to return to his home country, and you are seeking to be admitted as a refugee here. And then if you are successful based on your story, if you've been persecuted, if you've been harmed, if you've been threatened, you know, depending on what you went through in your country, you are eligible to apply for that. We call it affirmative asylum. Then, if you cross the border, there are people that cross the border. They were not, either you are inspected by the customs or you are arrested at the border, you can request asylum. They will do their intake, ask you questions to find if there are reasonable fear or whatever issues you may have in your country. And the immigration officer might determine that they don't believe your story, but at the same time, they don't have the authority to grant you the asylum, so they send you to immigration court. That's what we call you, for you to go before the judge to approve, you know, to kind of prove your asylum, prove the story if you have other evidence. So if you're able to, but you're going to be in what we call removal proceedings. They call it deportation before, but they named it removal proceedings. So if you are able to convince the judge, I call it a second bite on the apple when you appear before the judge. And if you're able to tell your story credibly, because asylum is about credibility, is your story believable? Because when you come out with a story, there are millions of stories like that from applicants that apply for asylum all over the United States. So if you have Kenyans that live in New Jersey, you know, New York, Houston, whatever, they come out with the asylum story. You know, sometimes some of those stories kind of look alike. So, but it has to be something that specifically happened to you. So that's what they are looking at. If you have documents to back it up, sometimes it's difficult to get those documents as soon as you leave your country. People come here, they didn't prepare. They didn't know that asylum might be the best bet for them. So they didn't come up with documents. But you can go, you know, call family members back home. They come up with them, help you to go and, you know, source those documents that can support your story. So if you are successful with that, the judge might grant you asylum. The same thing that in your affirmative asylum, whereas you have to prove the same thing that happened to you, persecution, you know, harm, torture, and so on in your country. You know, maybe the police, wrongful arrest, politicians, if you are, and there are 5 areas in asylum that you complete. Asylum based on race, nationality, a member of a social group, what other aspect, religion, you know. So these are the grounds you can request for asylum. But all these grounds, you have to make sure that it's something that affects you, okay? Before, the U.S. government used to look at religion differently. If you allege or claim that you are filing asylum based on a religion, you are a Presbyterian, being crucified in your country, and their position is, well, you can be a Catholic, okay? So religious asylum, sometimes it's hard. So if you're Anglican, I say they are killing Anglican in Kiambu district. You know, I have a lot of Kenya killing people and so in here. Or you are from Luo tribe or Kikuyu tribe, you know. And the Mungekes are killing Christians or Njamas or, you know, Kanjeshi or what do you call it? And all this, you know, so because they don't like Christians, they say, well, their position is, well, change your religion, period. It doesn't suffice for asylum. So, but political asylum, your opinion in the political process, maybe you belong to a political party, or you are a member of a political party, or you have sympathy, and you are against what the government is doing, you are very vociferous about it, So, yeah, and you are being persecuted by the government in power, They have the agents, the security agents, coming after you. Yeah, you can ask for affirmative asylum. If first of all, if you file the asylum, you have to make sure you file the asylum within 1 year you enter the United States. Very important. For you to seek exemption or waiver of that 1 year, you have to, they must have come up with a very, very reasonable ground that you didn't able to file within 1 year, but you are supposed to do that within 1 year. So what I recommend to family members, all Africans, anytime you have your family member that come to the United States and he or she has intention to stay, don't just use what happened for, Mr. A came here, this is what he did, or this is what we did when we came. Don't use it. Make sure you get him to go and get the legal advice from a lawyer. Pay for the consultation so that, the lawyer will ask some questions, know why he wants to stay. Some people are on a visit, but they don't want to go back. And they come up with this asylum story, They want to file asylum. So that's the best thing you can do for a family member. Don't let them just stay. And what I notice among Africans, including the Kenyans, somebody comes here, there are some group of people or agency, they write stories for you, for your asylum, and you file. And those stories are made up, they are fabricated. You can't even defend it. And that's why a lot of people go for their one-on-one interview with the asylum officer. They don't make it. All right? The asylum officer doesn't believe it, your story. And then also remember there are people that don't know how to tell their stories. There are people that are not good storytellers. So that one is a separate issue where they know you have some limitations in presentation. Okay? So, but where somebody wrote something for you, say, hey, file it, that's how we did our asylum far back when we came. Remember that after September 11, 2001, everything changed in this country, if you've been here. So, with the experience and the loss for this country, if you've been here this far back and know how much the U.S. government generates in revenue on the World Trade Center that was brought down, you can understand why they are very aggressive in tightening their immigration laws. That's what they're doing, tightening it for immigrants. So it's not what it used to be when some of us that came in the 90s, where you can just, file anything, paperwork, and they relax, they relax their immigration laws, and people were successful, So the affirmative asylum is when you come with a valid visa, you claim asylum, you file, then the asylum officer schedule you for interview, and then you don't, make the asylum, or they denied it, basically. And then they send you to what we call NTA, notice to appear, before immigration judge in Seattle or whatever state you are in the America, in that state. And which I call the second bite on the apple. That's when you have a second chance to prove your asylum before the judge. So asylum is very complex. It's a 50-50 chance. It's not guaranteed. So if anybody tells you, file asylum, that's how we got it. It's not guaranteed. 50-50. And anything that is 50-50 means that it can fall apart either side. Okay, so that's one way you can adjust your status. So if you are successful and is approved, either by the asylum officer or by the court, then after 1 year, you have that approval. Then you can file for your green card. You file your 485. to get your green card. And after that, 4 years after, you are eligible to file for citizenship. But here is the issue. Sometimes I have my clients that file the asylum. And it takes time. It's no more what it used to be before. In my office, we have asylum that we file for some of our clients since 2014, 2013, 2015, 16. They haven't been called for interview. So the good thing, though, is that after 5 months, you apply for your work permit, and it'll be approved, and you'll be working, supporting yourself, okay, and your family. That's the most important thing. But you know that since we had the Trump administration, there are a lot of adverse immigration actions against immigrants undertaken by that administration. So asylum is a tough thing to do right now, okay? President Biden hasn't been able to take down some of those restrictions put in place by Trump. First of all, if you file asylum before Trump came in, 5 months you're eligible to file for your work authorization. But he put an executive order that stopped that if you file asylum, you have to wait for 1 year to apply for work permit. And you can imagine 1 year without doing a damn thing, except if you're working under the table. If you work under the table, fine. But the employers are going to be in trouble. If they catch them, you're going to go to jail. $250,000 fine plus jail. So, and that's why it's difficult now for people to get work. You know, if you don't have your papers, everybody is trying to be very careful, because ICE can swoop on anybody at any time. ICE is Immigration, Custom and Enforcement. They just come in, carry people in wherever they're working, and then find the employer, this facility. So people are very careful now, taking anybody in, whether you're a family member or friends or whatever. So it's tough. So now Biden came in and wanted the asylum to be as fast as it used to be. Trump gave executive order 90 days after you file your asylum, it must be decided immediately so that they send you home. So people file, and during Trump era, I see a lot of people coming, denied, whether you have good story or you don't have any story that happened to you, you know. So that was his adverse immigration situation. Finally, you know, so I'm just talking about adoption, asylum as a pathway to your green card.